Hello students, so today we are going to start with the chapter cell structure. So to understand the cell structure, first of all we need to understand that how cell structure got studied in the first, like we cannot see the structure of the cell with our naked eyes. So we definitely need some instruments to help us to see the cell structures because they are very small sizes. The cells can't be seen with naked eyes. So the help was done with the help of microscope. So first of all, microscope came into existence, and with the help of microscopes we could study the cell structures very nicely, elaborately. So first of all, the first microscope that came into existence was a light microscope, and a light microscope actually magnified any cell image to, you can say, up to 1000x, 1000 times magnification. So suppose for example, if I see this dot, suppose this is a dot here, or this is a dot here, so this dot can be magnified or it can be seen under a microscope. It will show 1000 times bigger than this size. So it will be 1000x with the help of a light microscope. So the first microscopes that came into existence were light microscopes. After that, more research was done because we needed to see the cells very deeply. With 1000x magnification we cannot study the micro level of the molecules that are present, or the small organelles and functioning of different molecules in the organelles. So for that we needed even more magnification. So the magnification was improved with the discovery of electron microscope. So electron microscopes can magnify up to 10 to the power 6, a million times, or in fact a few uh, electron microscopes can magnify even better, you can say like 10 to 50 million times. Okay, so that magnification also happened with the help of electron microscope. So we will understand these microscopes in this chapter. Okay, so first of all, here we can see a beautiful image. See here, so this is done with scanning electron microscope. So SEM and TEM, there are two kind of electron microscopes that we'll understand in this chapter. So this is a picture of extremophile. Extremophile we can understand which can live or exist in extreme conditions. So these are the few particular, you can say, algae and protozoans and bacteria which can resist up to 75 degrees Celsius of water temperature. So they can live in that high temperatures. So that is why they are called as extremophiles. So this is a image of, this is taken with the help of a microscope. So this is a scanning electron microscope of a hot spring extremophile community. All right, so the green ones that we can see are basically the algae and the protozoans, and here the purple and reddish ones are basically the you can say bacteria, the purple bacteria. Okay, so in these high temperatures also we can see living organisms, they can resist it. So how a microscopy is used to investigate cell structure? Human eyes resolving power, the power to see any object, is very less. Okay, so anything which is much smaller than our eyes resolving power cannot be seen with the naked eyes. So for that purpose we invented microscope. And microscope that first came into existence, just like we discussed, the first ones came into existence were the light microscopes, and after that now we have electron microscopes. Okay, so the electron microscopes are two types: SEM, and scanning electron microscope, and transmission electron microscope. So these two are basically the electron microscopes. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll start with the chapter now. Cells is the basic structural unit of all living organisms. So definitely individual cell is the fundamental unit of life. The whole organism, a multicellular organism, which might have a lot of cells, it is actually made up of these combined individual cells. Okay, so small organism consist of single cell, but larger organisms are multicellular, and it is estimated that 70 kg human के अंदर approximately you can say there are approximately 3.8 into 10 to the power 13 cells. So these many cells can be found in a 70 kg human. So it is nearly 40 trillion cells that are present in a 70 kg human. So depending on the species, there might be unicellular, there are bacteria or algae, there are certain particular species which are unicellular. A single cell signifies the whole organism, and in multicellular organisms or the higher organism, many cells combine and the cells might have different function. Okay, so the group of cells, some group of cells like in humans are working as a heart, some group of cells are working as muscles, other working cells are working as a brain. So the group of cells, they have been destined, or they have been given different function to do in the body. So now, the statement that the living organism consists of cells is an example of a theory. The theory was developed when Robert Hooke and his biologists from the 17th century onwards used microscopes. So he was the first one to use the microscope to look the structure of living organisms. Now, plant cells are relatively easy to view with microscope. By the 19th century, animal tissues could also be examined. Both type of tissues were found to consist of cells. Both the tissues were made up of cells, which was common. So the scientists concluded that all organisms are made up of cells. They had not looked all parts of the organisms, but they had found a trend that allowed them to make general predictions about the structure of organisms. So these are the first discoveries that were made in 1970s. So yes. So now in the 17th century, sorry. Since the development of cell theory, researchers have discovered some structures in living organisms that do not consist of typical cells. Some of these structures are described later. So let's start here. Observations, theory, and inductive reasoning. So biologists are interested in natural world and look carefully at it. So they actually tried to see all the kind of cells, different cells taken from different resources. Like cork is taken from plant, it also consists of cells. Embryos, which actually make the whole new you can say a plant or another organism, they are also made up of cells. Elder pith, which is present in the center of the you can say a stem. So suppose this is a tree, and the tree's center part, this is the trunk. If we cut the trunk like this, so the center part will have the pith. Okay, so this elder pith is also made up of cells. Now toad cartilage, so toad is basically an small frog like animal. Its cartilage, it also consisted of cells. So that shows that all living organism consist of cells, and this is a theory developed by inductive reasoning. Okay, inductive means you can induce from your observations that definitely this is a fact, that all of the organisms, definitely they all are made up of cells, so we can make a general statement like that. All right, so this is the cell theory was given on this basis, on the basis of inductive reasoning. Okay, the specific discovery that the parts of diverse organism consist of cell, whichever part you take from any species, it is made up of cell. So this gave a general idea that all the organisms are made up of cells. So let's go ahead. So here we have one very interesting example. Now this is a larvation house. So one basically you can say a larvation lives in this. So this is not the larvation exactly. This is a tadpole like larvation. Here you can see a very thin line, that blue line, a long tail like structure. This is the larvation, and this larvation actually secretes mucus and forms this larvation house. So the center thing, this is the larvation house. Okay, and this outer shield, it also a part of this house only. Okay, now the food will be trapped in the outer you can say the net, and finally it comes inside this larvation house where the larvation actually consumes it. So we can see this close pictures with the help of these microscopes. Now, a team of researchers in Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute led to a researching marine organisms called larvaceans. So this is basically the picture, okay, and so this picture shows larvaceans house, the bigger, or this is exactly the larvacean house, all right, and also consist of two non-cellular mucous structures. So this is one and this is another one. We can see both of them clearly here, two structures. Now the structure of this larvation is not very large. It is approximately 3 to 5 centimeters. Okay, the size of this larvation is 3 to 5 centimeters, but it can make a larvation home or a house which can be up to 1 meters in length. So the larva will be secreted by this larvation and it will make this big house, and the food will be trapped in this house for this larvation for its consumption. All right, so let's go ahead. Now let's start with the microscopy skills. Lenses allow us to look into structures that are too small to see with the naked eye. So anything that is about 0.1 millimeters in size, our naked eye can see that. But anything smaller than 0.1 millimeters, it cannot be seen by our naked eyes. So we need some aid or some instrument to magnify it, and that magnifying instrument, the first one that came into existence was a magnifying glass. So a normal magnifying convex lens actually can magnify up to 20 times, but this cannot show you exactly the structure of a cell. So this is very less magnification, so we need more magnification. This is not enough for studying of structure of cells. So microscopes came into existence and they have two lenses attached to them. Okay, so one is eyepiece, another one is objective lens. What are these? We will understand just now. So the two lenses actually, if we put, suppose for example, this is our object that we want to see, this is one lens and this is another lens. And if you are seeing from here, okay, so if I am seeing from here, if you see from here, then you will see that both these lenses, their magnification will actually get multiplied and you will see a bigger size of this particular thing. Okay, so a very small thing can be seen in a bigger size. So for example, the first lens is say 10x and the second one is 40x, though in that case it will magnify up to 400x. So the power will be multiplied. 10 into 40, that is 400x. So we can magnify the size of this image up to 400x using two such lenses. So this will allow us to see the objects as small as 0.0001 millimeters. So 0.1 micrometer size we can see using a light microscope. So if we use a light microscope, we can see objects which will be up to a size of 0.1 micrometers. So using a microscope is an essential skill for biologists, because without that we cannot even see any cell. So let's understand a light microscope here. This is a normal light microscope. So here, first of all, just like I told you, there will be two lenses used here. The first one is the eyepiece. So this is the eyepiece. From here you are going to see these, you'll put your two eyes over here, and from here you will see, and you will see the eyepiece will be fixed over here in the eyepiece. The second lens is added over here, which is the objective lens. And objective lens can be 2-3 types. Okay, so they might be different resolution. So one might be 10x, 20x, 40x, like that. So you can change the lens according to your requirement, what size of the object you want to see. Now this is the stage. So this is a stage on which you are going to put your object. So you'll put your object over here, you will see from here. So there'll be two lenses all together and their power, their magnification will get multiplied, and you will see a bigger picture of this particular object. So on this stage, you will put your slide on which you will be keeping your object, and from here you will see, and you will see a magnified picture. Now to see it, you need light. So this will be a light source which will come from down. So from here the light source will be sent, and condenser will make sure that only required amount of light which will exactly put on the, which will exactly go up to the object, will reach up to the object. The extra light will be cut so that you will get a better clear picture. Now, to make the resolution even better, you have a fine focus and a coarse focus. So when you will put your object here, you have set your eyepiece, you have set your objective lens, and you have put your slide over here with the thing that you want to see. You have switched on the light source. After that, you will first of all do a coarse fine. Okay, so coarse focus will make the picture clear, a little bit clear. And after doing a coarse focus, that okay, now I can see the object, you will do the fine focus. So fine focus will make the picture even more clearer. So after fine focus, you'll be exactly able to see the picture in this light microscope. So now, to improve your skills using microscope as much as you can, so first of all you need to learn the names of the parts of the microscope and understand how to focus the microscope to get the best possible image. So these are the things that I've just told you. So if you'll remember all the steps, you'll be able to see the object. Now, coarse and fine focusing, just as I told you, first of all, after putting your slide, you'll do the coarse focus and then you'll do the fine focus. Okay, so here, if you want to increase the magnification, move the slide. So most promising region is exactly in the middle of the field of view, and then change to a higher magnification lens. How can you change to a higher magnification lens? So these are your objective lenses and they might be of different magnification. Suppose earlier you were using a 10x lens, so later on you can change it. Actually this gets rotated, so you can actually keep this, you can take this particular lens over here, so you can bring it here, and might be this is 40x or 100x, so it will actually increase your magnification. So now there are certain problems that actually come while you see under a microscopes, and these are the solutions given for it. So I think you can do this while doing the practical. Now, making a temporary mount of cell and tissues and using stains. So what are temporary mounts and what are permanent mounts? Let's understand this. So just as I told you, we will keep our object or the thing that we want to see under the microscope on a glass slide. So the slides that you examine with a microscope can be permanent or temporary both. So to make a permanent slide, you need a lot of expertise, and it is not possible for everybody to make these permanent slides, because you have to really cut a very thin section of the object that you want to see. It has to be 1 cell thick. Okay, so it suppose for example, if this is a thin stem of any plant that I want to see under my microscope, so I'll cut a section of it. I'll cut over here first, and then using an instrument, I'll cut it like this. So this thin slice, actually this thin slice, if I see it from the top, it will look like this. So it has to be 1 cell thick to see the cells exactly under the microscope. So it needs a lot of expertise, but students generally make temporary slides, so they are quick and easy to make. So you will, if you will do any practical in your lab, you will actually make a temporary slide. So first of all, you will cut a section like this, and then you will put it on the, suppose this is a glass slide and this is your section, so you will put your section over here, and on that you will actually add some stain or water on the top of it. Okay, after that you will put a cover slip. Cover slip is a even thin glass slip that you will put on the top of your object so that it stays fixed in its place. Okay, so first of all, place the cells on the slide. So you have placed the cells, and then in the layer not more than 1 cell thick, add a drop of water or stain. So stains, what is the role of a stain? So water is transparent, but stains actually they are absorbed by certain molecules present inside the cells. So you can see a more clearer picture if they take up the stain. You will see a colored picture of the cells. So that will even give a better resolution. You will be able to distinguish between the cells, their outer covering area, and the you can say, if I'm seeing plant cell, so plant cell, you can say a slide, then in that case you will be able to see the cells in the center and the outer epidermis and all those kind of cells you will be able to see very very clearly. Now, after you add water or stain, generally we add different kind of stains on the basis of what is your object actually, which kind of cells do you want to see. Accordingly we add the stain, and these stains help the structures that are pale or transparent to show up more clearly, because generally these pale or transparent structures take up the stain and they becomes colored and it is more visible to your eyes. Carefully lower the cover slip onto your drop. So here you will put your cover slip, and then air bubble should not come in between the slide and your objective or your object, so that you'll see a clear picture. So here we can see, so here this is a glass slide on which we have put our cells, and we have put this brown structure that we can see, it is stain or water. Now this is a cover slip, which is a very small and thin glass slip, and carefully we will lower the cover slip and cover our object and gently squeeze to remove the excess fluid. No air bubble should come inside it, so you should do it on the sideways so that the air actually gets removed slowly. If you will put it down like this, so the air bubbles will go out from this way. So here we will see certain sketches which are actually seen under microscope, different cells. So first picture is of a moss leaf. So it is a lower plant. So the moss plant has very thin leaves. Mount a single leaf in a drop of water or methylene blue stain. So this is the cell of a moss plant. So in moss plants we can see the center large vacuole. So this is basically a vacuole that is present in most of the plant cells, a very large basically vacuole which is filled up of water. Okay, so in scarcity of water it is helpful to fulfill the requirements of the water. Similarly here also we can see, so if you see such large vacuole in the center, then definitely you can identify this is a plant cell. Now one more interesting thing, in plant cells actually outside the cell membrane a cell wall, extra cell wall will also be present, which is absent in animal cells. So that is why the outer layer will be thicker if we are seeing a plant cell. If you are seeing a animal cell, if you are seeing an animal cell, the outer wall will be the cell membrane and there will be no cell wall present. So here we can see this is very thin line here. So that shows it is only a cell membrane, cell wall is absent here. So this is definitely an animal cell. Okay, this is a human cheek cell. These three are actually plant cells. So we can see the outer thick layer which is having a cell membrane. Inside will be cell membrane or plasma membrane. Okay, and outside will be the cell wall present. In fact, if we see a animal cell, in an animal cell the only outer layer will be the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, you can say. Okay, so the outermost membrane will be the plasma membrane in animals, and in plants it will be the cell wall, which will be the outermost you can say the structure present inside the cells. So in these two cells, which are leaf cells of different plants, okay, so this is a lower leaf epidermis, leaves lower epidermis. So if we will peel off the lower epidermis, what is epidermis actually? It is the outermost layer of cells that are present. Suppose this is a leaf. Okay, if I'm seeing it from the side, so there'll be upper epidermis and there'll be a lower epidermis, and there'll be a layer of cells which will be present between these two layers. So we have peeled off this lower epidermis, and one cell of this lower epidermis can be seen here. So this will be the central vacuole. Okay, and these are the organelles that can be seen present on the outer side, and this fluid like thing is basically the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm will be present in all of them, whether it is animal or plant cell. Here also we can see this is the vacuole. Okay, and these are the organelles present in the moss leaf, and here in the banana fruit cell. So moss leaf and lower epidermis of a leaf, here their function is basically photosynthesis and production of glucose. But if we see a banana fruit cell, so the banana fruit cell, what will it have? Its function is storage of starch, and it will not be involved in anything like photosynthesis. So starch will be filled in these fruit cells. Okay, so let's see here. Moss leaf, use of a moss plant with very thin leaves, mount a single leaf, and we can see, we can stain it with a methylene blue stain. So what is methylene blue stain? So it is basically a cationic dye. Okay, so this is a cationic dye, and it actually stains, it actually stains negatively charged molecules. Okay, so this is a cationic dye. What is the function of methylene blue? It stains negatively charged molecules. In a cell, majorly the negatively charged molecules are DNA and RNA. So this is going to stain the DNA and RNA, and other cells might also be present which will be negatively charged. So all of them will be stained, and specifically the nucleus will be darker. So here we can see this is the nucleus, which is looking very dark compared to other vacuoles and other organelles, right? So the negatively charged molecules will be stained using the methylene blue. So here in most of them we are using methylene blue wherever we want to stain the cell. Okay, so here also methylene blue is being used, here also methylene blue is being used. Human cheek cell is taken. So how do we take a human cheek cell? We'll use a cotton bud to scrape the cells from inside of your cheek, smear them on a slide and add methylene blue stain. So this is the structure of the cell that you're going to see. Now here in banana fruit cell, we are going to stain with the iodine solution. Why we are not staining it with methylene blue? Because here the DNA and RNA content will, the cell will basically composed mainly of the starch, because the function of these cells is storage. Now starch actually reacts with iodine solution and gives a purple bluish color. So that is why we can easily see this cell will easily get stained with this iodine solution. So the storage cells will be stained using the iodine solution. So let's go ahead. Mammalian liver cell. Now scrape the cells from freshly cut surface of liver. Okay, smear on the slide and add methylene blue to stain. Again here we are adding methylene blue. So here also you can see a thick outer membrane, which is the plasma membrane, and there is no cell wall present. That is why this is thin. And if you see any plant cell, and thicker structure, outer structure will be seen. So I hope you can easily identify which ones are the animal cells and which one are the plant cells. Okay, so this is a 5 micrometer scale that is given. On this basis you can estimate the size of this cell. Okay, next is white blood cell. Now if you want to smear or if you want to stain any sort of blood cell, okay, we use a Leishman stain, which is different, and it is basically a mixture of methylene blue and eosin. It is a mixture of methylene blue plus eosin, and it is basically used to stain the blood cells if you want to make any blood smear. Now what is the basic function of Leishman stain? So you can differentiate the white blood cells from any other sort of bacterial cells and other type of cells, and you can differentiate it because particularly the blood cells will take up this stain and they'll be more visible compared to the other bacterial cells. Okay, because they definitely have more amount of DNA and RNA in them. So here we can see this is the picture of an onion epidermis cell. So whenever you cut open an onion, you will see between the two layers of onion a very thin layer or very thin film like structure can be seen. So that peel is used here, and it has been stained. So now we can see certain cells can be clearly seen in their shape, and they have taken up the stain. Actually, the ones which have not taken up the stain, they are actually the dead cells, or they might have got ruptured due to some reason. And these round structures, they are basically the air bubbles that you can see. So this is a structure of an onion peel that you'll see under a microscope. All right, so they have told certain things about microscopy here. So now just on this microscope that we just studied, on the top we missed this camera, I guess. So whatever you will see from this eyepiece, you can take picture using this camera. You can use your smartphones as well to take the picture from here, and you can see whatever you can see from these eyepieces, okay, or this lens. You will, whatever you are seeing, you can take a picture of that using these camera. So it is certain more things that they are telling about the microscope picture taking. So measuring size using a eyepiece graticule. So what is the graticule basically? So whenever you will see through the eyepiece, you can actually have an option of this graticule. You can switch that on. In the advanced cameras, you will see that. So here in the graticule, there will be actually the sizes. So whenever you are taking the picture, you will see the exact size of this particular image or the object that is kept here, so that you can actually find out that how much times it has been magnified, what was its actual size, and now what size you are seeing. So how much times magnification have been done here. Okay, so you can measure the actual size of structures visible through microscope by using scale inside the eyepiece called graticule. The graticule has to be calibrated so that you know what size each unit on this scale indicates. This will be different for each objective lens. For example, if you are using objective lens which is 400x, so high power, okay, if 40x magnification, then it is low power. So accordingly you have to fix the graticule. You have to calibrate it depending on which objective lens exactly you are using. So in this light microscope, the eyepiece lens will be the same resolution, okay, and the objective lens, you have options. So whichever option you want to choose, accordingly you will see the size of the object. So now the typical school microscope have 3 levels of magnification. 440x is low power, 100x medium power, and 400x is high power. So these are the microscopes that you generally see in your schools. So these are the magnifying powers that they will have. Okay, if you take a photo down a microscope, you can magnify the image even more. So if you're using an electron microscope, the magnification can be higher, but when you use a light microscope, the maximum magnification generally possible is up to 1000x. Okay, so you can magnify the image up to 1000x. Now, to find the magnification of micrograph or drawing, you need to know two things. So what are the two things that you need to know? The size of the image in the drawing of the micrograph and actual size of the specimen. So this is the formula. This is really important. Many questions have come in your examination based on this particular formula. So do remember this formula. What is it say? Magnification is equal to size of image. So what is the size of image after magnification that you are seeing, and actual size of the specimen. So with this, you can, with these two things, you can find out the magnification, actually how much times the actual specimen has been magnified. If you know the size of image and magnification, you can calculate the actual size of specimen. So out of these three things, you need to know only the two things, and you can then exactly find out the magnification or size of image or actual size of the specimen. So if you know the size of the image and magnification, you can calculate actual size of the specimen. When using the formula, you must make sure that the same units for the size of image and actual size of the specimen could be both millimeters or micrometer, whatever it is given, you can find out. but they must not be different, otherwise the calculations will be wrong. So if you're using the size of image and actual size of specimen, they both either have to be in micrometers or millimeters. You cannot keep one size of image in micrometer and actual size of specimen in millimeter, then your answer will not be correct. So both these should be same units, just keep that in mind. If your size of image is given in millimeters and actual size of specimen is given in micrometers, then convert millimeter into micrometer and then do the calculations, otherwise your answer will be wrong here. Now here you can convert millimeters and okay, so this is very easy. If you, how do you convert millimeter into micrometer? So basically 1 millimeter is equal to 1000 micrometers. So if your structure is given in micrometers and one is in millimeters, then you can convert millimeters again by multiplying it with 1000 into micrometers, and then you can do your calculation. So an example is given here. The length of an image is 30 millimeters. It represents a structure that has actual size. So actual size is 3 micrometers. So 3 micrometers determine the magnification of the image. So what we will do, we will convert basically. So here the person has actually converted both of them into meters. So since we know that 1 millimeter is equal to, so 1 meter is equal to 1000 millimeters, we know that, right? So basically 1 millimeter will be equal to, so we can also say 1 millimeter is equal to 10 to the power minus 3 meters. So if we have 30 millimeters, then the size of 30 millimeters will be 30 into 10 to the power minus 3 meters. And if you want to convert micrometer into meters, so again we have to multiply even more 1000. If you want to convert 1 meter into micrometer, so it will be 1000 into 1000. But if you want to convert micrometer into meters, then it will be 10 to the power minus 6. So similarly, if you want to convert 3 micrometers into meters, so basically 1 micrometer is equal to 10 to the power minus 6 meters. Remember that. Okay, so 3 micrometers has been converted into meters here. So now we can see, we can use this formula. Magnification is equal to size of the image. So size of the image is 30 millimeters, which is 30 into 10 to the power minus 3 meters here, and 3 into 10 to the power minus 6. This is actual size of the specimen which will be kept here. So actually we have done a 10,000 times magnification here. Okay, so the other way is this one. We can convert millimeters into micrometers. Okay, and again we can find out the answer. So both ways you can do. Either you can convert millimeters into micrometers. I guess this way is more easy and much better. So you can use this method, which is better, and this might be a little bit confusing. So basically convert them into the smaller unit, whichever is given. So you can convert it into micrometer here, the millimeters, and you can find out the resolution. So this resolution actually cannot be achieved using a light microscope. You'll have to use an electron microscope to achieve this resolution. Okay, electron microscopes can give a resolution up to 1,000,000 times, up to 10 to the power 6, okay, x. But the light microscopes give a resolution up to 1000 times or 10 to the power 3x. Okay, so do remember that also. So here we have a DBQ. So you can practice this one and find out the answers. So we will solve first 2-3 questions, and I'll leave a few questions for you to do it, and we'll discuss in the next class. So let's read the first question. Determine the magnification of the Thiomargaritia cells in figure 1. Determine the maximum diameter of the whole cell in the micrograph. So here Thiomargaritia cells, one whole cell and two in part. The scale bar represents 0.2 micrometers. Okay, though the scale bar is showing 0.2 micrometers. So determine the magnification of Thiomargaritia cells in figure 1. So here, if the magnification is 0.2 micrometers, in that case, if we calculate the, if we actually see the size, you can see that in your book Okay, using a scale you can measure the size of the cell. That will be the size of the image, and actual size of this specimen can be also seen. So this actually the scale bar is representing zero point 0.2 micrometer, so that we can say is actual size of the specimen. All right, so here how we will do it. So we will solve it like that. So first of all we will use the scale bar, use a scale bar and measure the cell. So what I have found it is approximately 20 millimeters. So this is the size of image, size of image. Okay, let's do it on a page. So size of image is equal to 20 millimeter, and size of specimen is actually how much? So size of specimen is 0.2 micrometer it is showing. So we will convert either millimeters into micrometers. So we can do that. We can do that by multiplying 20 into 1000. So it will be 20,000 micrometers. Okay, so size of image upon size of specimen, so that will be magnification. Magnification will be equal to size of image upon size of actual specimen. So the size of image is 20,000 micrometer upon size of actual specimen is 0.2 micrometer. So we can solve it and we can see that it is, if I'll remove this and then one more zero, and this will be 1. So 1 2 3 4 5, so 10 to the power 5x. So this is the magnification of this image, 10 to the power 5x. So or you can write 1 2 3 4 5x. So this is the magnification if we are using a size of specimen as 0.2 micrometer and size of image is 20 millimeters. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Determine the maximum diameter of the whole cell in the micrograph. So if we want to see the diameter of the whole specimen here, so what will be the diameter of the whole specimen? So actual so let's see here, diameter of the whole specimen. So we have to actually again measure the diameter of it, okay, in the image, so which is coming out to be 26 mm approximately for me, and the magnification is 10,000 is equal to this, and upon, if you want to see the actual size, okay, so then if you want to see the actual size, okay, so now 26 millimeter upon 10,000 is the magnification, and I'll take the actual size over here. In that case it will be equal to, so it will be even very smaller. So you will do like this. So 5 zeros were there, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So then 0.00026 millimeter, or you can also say it is 0.26 micrometer. Okay. So this is the actual size of the whole specimen. Width, you can see the diameter it is asked, so it is approximately 0.6 micrometer or this much millimeter. So just remember the values, okay. So 1 meter is equal to 1000 millimeters. You'll definitely have some or the other question in examination. 1 millimeter is equal to 1000 micrometers. All right, so remember that. And nanometers also you get sometimes, but it will not be used here probably. But 1 micrometer is equal to 1000 nanometers. So remember that also. All right, so these are certain values, these are more important for you, so do remember these. Okay, So let's come to the next question. In figure 12, the actual length of a mitochondrion is 8 micrometers. Determine the magnification of the electron micrograph. Okay, so let's see the question. So the actual length of mitochondria is 8 and determine the magnification of the electron micrograph. So here again, we'll have to see using a scale, use a scale and calculate the actual size of this picture. Okay, so here if you want to find out the magnification, we have the actual size here. We have to with the help of a scale measure the size of this mitochondrion, okay, and then we'll be able to find the magnification. So how do we find out the magnification here? So the actual size is somewhere around 31 millimeters, okay, and the specimen actual size is given 8 micrometers. So I'll convert this millimeter into micrometer. For that I'll multiply it with 1000, so it will be 31,000 micrometer. So now I'll put the formula. So this is the size of the image and this is actual size of the specimen. So magnification is equal to the size of the image, which is 31,000 micrometer upon actual size of the specimen, that is 8 micrometer. So if we solve it, you will find the answer, which will be somewhere around 3900 or 3800. So 3875x is the resolution. So this will be the magnification power of this particular event or this particular microscope in this particular case. Okay, now next is calculate the length of 5 micrometer scale bar on this electron micrograph. So if you want to calculate length of 5 micrometer scale, so here the scale bar, so if we want to calculate the 5 micrometer, then we will multiply it with the, so this is the actual size, okay, and if you want to find the size of the image, actually the micrograph, then in that case we'll multiply the actual size with the magnification. So we already have the magnification and here the actual size that it is asking for is 5 micrometer. So what we will do is 5 into this your magnification, that is 3875. So then in that case what it is actually asking, length of 5 micrometer scale bar. So actual length of 5 micrometer scale bar in the photo will be this. So you can solve it and find the answer. Okay, so this will come somewhere around 19,375. Okay, that will be micrometers because this is 5 micrometer. So if you want to see it in millimeters, then you will divide this micrometer can be converted into millimeters. So millimeters will be 19.375 millimeters because millimeter is bigger. Alright, so I hope it is clear how will you solve the questions. Let's see the next question. Determine the width of the mitochondrion. So just now we have find out the length. Okay, if you want to see the width of this, then just using a scale in your book, see what is the width of this particular mitochondrion on your scale. Okay, measure the width and then you can actually determine the width of the mitochondrion. So we already have the resolution, all right, and the actual size of the image. So 11 micromillimeters is the width and the resolution is 3875. So here actual width of mitochondrion we can find out. All right, so just solve it and you'll find the answer. So this is somewhere around 0.0028 millimeters because this is in millimeters that we have measured using our scale. So this will be the actual width of mitochondrion, and if you want to convert it in micrometer, then it will be somewhere around 2.8 micrometer. Okay, So this is how you can solve the questions, and now I'll leave a few questions for you to solve. We have done the first two questions and we'll start from here in the next class. Third and fourth question are your homework, so just try to finish them off, and we will also discuss these questions in the next class. So students, that is all for this session. See you in the next session where we'll continue with this topic.